We tend to think of artificial intelligence as this totally logical, objective thing, right? But what if I told you that AI can be just as biased as we are? It's because these systems learn from data that we humans create, and in the process, they can end up learning our flaws, our prejudices, and all our historical mistakes. So today, let's dive into the fascinating and super important topic of algorithmic bias. This quote from the ACLU just hits the nail on the head. The real fear isn't just that AI will make a few mistakes. It's that it will take our existing biases, wrap them up in this complicated black box of code, and then sell them back to us as some kind of objective truth. It's a really powerful idea, and we're about to see just how real it can get.
All right, let's kick things off with a perfect cautionary tale from a company we all know. Way back in 2014, Amazon decided to build the holy grail of HR, an AI that could automatically scan resumes and pick out the absolute best candidates. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? So the project gets going with this massive goal: teach an AI what a good resume looks like. To do that, the engineers fed it 10 years' worth of resumes that had been submitted to Amazon. But here's the catch. That data was a reflection of the tech industry's gender imbalance. It was overwhelmingly male. And by 2015, the team had a horrible realization. They hadn't built a hiring tool. They'd built a machine that taught itself that men were simply better candidates. And this bias was just incredibly specific. The AI literally learned to penalize resumes that even mentioned the word women's, like if you were the captain of the women's chess club. It actively downgraded applicants from 2 all-women's colleges. Amazon's team, of course, tried to fix it, to make it neutral, but they just couldn't guarantee it wouldn't find new, sneakier ways to discriminate. In the end, they had to scrap the whole thing.
Okay, so the Amazon story is a pretty dramatic example, but it perfectly sets the stage for what we're really talking about today. So, what exactly is algorithmic bias?
At its core, algorithmic bias is all about unfair, systematic errors. And that word, systematic, is the key. These aren't just random glitches or one-off bugs. No, they are repeatable, predictable problems that come from flaws that are baked right into the AI's data, its design, or how it's being used in the real world. So here's the biggest difference you need to remember. A random error is just a technical glitch. It's totally unpredictable. But algorithmic bias, that's a structural problem. It systematically targets and disadvantages entire groups of people because it has learned to copy real-world prejudices. It's bias by design, not by accident. This brings us to a really simple but powerful phrase you're going to hear a lot: bias in, bias out. It's kind of like that old computer science saying, garbage in, garbage out. If the data you feed an AI is already tainted with historical prejudices and societal imbalances, then the results it spits out are going to be just as tainted. It just can't create fairness from unfair data.
So, if it's not just about the data, where else can this bias creep in? Well, it turns out there are a whole bunch of points of failure. Let's take a look at the entire journey of an AI model to see all the potential pitfalls.
Think about an AI's life as having 5 stages. Bias can sneak in right at the very beginning, in the conception phase, if the team doesn't think through the potential for harm. It can get in during data collection, which is exactly what we saw with Amazon. It can happen during development, when it's deployed, and even after it's live, if nobody is monitoring it properly. It's a constant risk. Let's break these sources down a bit. First, human bias is a huge one. Developers' own subconscious stereotypes can shape how an algorithm is designed. Then there's representation bias, which is the Amazon problem. The data just doesn't reflect the real world's diversity. And then you have something called measurement bias, where inconsistent data can throw the AI off. For example, imagine trying to train an AI on photos from both a fancy camera and a blurry webcam. It might accidentally learn to associate blurry with whatever you're trying to teach it. Sometimes the algorithm itself is the problem. Aggregation bias is when a one-size-fits-all model totally ignores the needs of smaller groups. Think about a self-driving car trained mostly in sunny California. It might really struggle in a snowy Minnesota winter. Feature selection is also super tricky. One famous study found an algorithm used healthcare costs to predict sickness, but it ended up discriminating against Black patients because, for systemic reasons, they had historically spent less on healthcare. And finally, there's us, automation bias. That's our tendency to just blindly trust the machine, even when our own gut is telling us something is off.
Look, this is way more than just an academic exercise. These biases have very real, very serious consequences that affect people's ability to get a job, secure a home, or even get fair insurance rates. The stakes really could not be higher. And all of this is leading to a massive wave of litigation. This is not a future problem. It is happening right now. Companies are facing lawsuits for discriminatory AI. Workday is being sued for allegedly screening out applicants over 40. State Farm is facing a lawsuit over a fraud detection system that allegedly targeted Black homeowners. And SafeFriend for a tenant screening tool that allegedly discriminated against Black and Hispanic applicants. The courts are now having to figure out a brand new question. Can a machine be held responsible for discrimination? Let's look at one more case study. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, went after Rite Aid for its use of facial recognition technology. Now, the system was being used to spot potential shoplifters, but the FTC alleged it was discriminatory and created a serious risk of harm to consumers. And the result? The FTC hit Rite Aid with a 5-year ban on using facial recognition technology. This is a huge deal. A major regulatory body sent a crystal clear signal. If your algorithm is unfair, there will be serious consequences. This wasn't just a fine, it was a direct order to stop using the technology altogether. So yeah, the situation can seem pretty bleak, but it's not hopeless. There's a growing movement of developers, regulators, and activists who are all working to tackle this problem from every possible angle. And it really has to be a multi-pronged response. We need better strategies from the developers who build this stuff, we need legal accountability through lawsuits, and we need new, smart regulations. And honestly, we all need to be aware of the potential for bias. No single one of these solutions is enough on its own. So here's what that actually looks like in practice. On the technical side, companies are starting to use fairness checklists and bringing in independent auditors. Legally, something called a disparate impact lawsuit is a really powerful tool because you don't have to prove the company intended to discriminate, just that its tool had a discriminatory outcome. And on the regulatory front, we're seeing huge new laws like the EU's AI Act, which puts super strict rules on any AI system they consider high risk, like those used in hiring or law enforcement. This technology is moving at an incredible speed, and our understanding of its social impact is still playing catch-up. We're building machines that make these hugely important decisions about our lives, and that leaves us with the ultimate question. As we continue to automate more and more of our world, how do we make sure that we're automating fairness right alongside it? And what is our role in demanding that fairness?